Hello and welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I'm your host Paul, and today I'm joined by my co-host Dennis. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm 110%, Paul.
Always 110%. What you doing this week?
Well, this week you and I are in the beautiful Big Lakes County, up doing some ICS training for the folks at Big Lakes County and High Prairie, and having a great time enjoying northern Alberta during the start of wildfire season.
Awesome. Yeah, here we are trying to record in a hotel room. We'll see how it works out. Okay, let's see. Current events. A couple of current events here, first of all, before we get into this week's episode. This will be episode 98, by the way. We're getting close to 100. I got a special one that I'm working on for 100. FirefighterCloseCalls.com reports that 4 Sacramento, California firefighters were incapacitated by toxic fumes at a Tesla EV fire recently, and they are now undergoing experimental treatment to attempt to remove heavy metals from their lungs that were acquired during the overhaul phase of a post-thermal runaway fire recently. In a first ever type of firefighter injury, noting that Fire Research Institute, Science Institute, recently noted that in burn testing they did of thermal runaway fires, the smoke emitted heavy metals and DNA altering products of combustion. So apparently the firefighters had doffed their SCBAs because the fire was out and they were in overhaul phase. And then they were poisoned by this toxic smoke. So the message is to people is keep your SCBA on around any thermal runaways so you don't ingest this toxic smoke that could be life altering. Also, Fire Engineering and the Fire Research Science Institute reports that NFPA 1700 2026 edition is now out, and if you haven't looked at it yet, you should. The update leans hard into something many of us already know from experience and testing that FSRI did. Fireground success starts with decision making, not just aggression. A few takeaways are: search and rescue is now fully integrated into strategy. Life safety is clearly the priority driving all tactics on the fireground. Size up is emphasized as a continuous structured process, and exterior water application is validated as part of an offensive strategy. So that initial hit, transitional attack they used to call it, or some call it, water application from exterior to knock the fire back so you can get in and do the search is now part of the offensive strategy, and a special section on lithium ion and battery hazards are now a real operational consideration for firefighters as we are starting to see more and more energy storage systems in buildings, save on the environment and solar panels and stuff. One of the biggest shifts in the new standard is how everything connects back to survivability. Fire attack and ventilation are no longer standalone actions. They exist to support the search. And that's a mindset shift that you should show in training, not just policy. Are you seeing this reflected in how your department operates? Is the question that fire engineering poses. Okay, well, a little disclaimer here. This podcast commentary is based on the information that's available at the time of recording and the experience of the presenters. This is done to the best of our ability, and listeners should be cautioned that they may not agree with our opinions, but they are our opinions. The information for this episode comes from the Texas State Fire Marshal Report, FFFY 1307, NIOSH Firefighter Fatality and Injury Prevention Program Report, F 2013-17. This has taken us to Dallas, Texas. On May 20th of 2013, a 51-year-old male career firefighter for the city of Dallas, firefighter Wilson, was conducting a primary search for occupants after the 4th alarm. So this was a big fire at an apartment complex, and he was killed inside the building when a portion of it collapsed. I remember this vividly from when it happened because I was a fire chief at the time, and I remember hearing that these guys went back in to do another search late in the game and the building collapsed. First, a little bit about the fire department. This career fire department consists of 1,900 members that provide their residents with fire suppression and protection, emergency rescue, emergency medical first response. They have 57 fire stations located strategically throughout the city. They serve a population of more than 1,200,000 people in a geographic area of approximately 385 square miles. A minimum of 4 firefighters respond on each of the fire engines and ladder truck companies. These fire stations house 56 fire engines and 22 ladder trucks, 5 airport rescue firefighting apparatus, 9 booster pumpers, which may be high pressure, maybe, I'm not sure, and 1 hazmat unit, as well as 40 frontline rescues, mass casualty in ICUs, which are ambulances, I believe, and 3 peak demand rescues.
Wow, so that's a pretty large fire department. But let's look at the training and experience. So the incident commander had more than 30 years of experience and training on topics including the incident command system, ICS 100, 200, 300, 400, incident safety officer, instructional techniques for company officers, and National Incident Management Systems, or NIMS, 701 to 704. Firefighter Wilson had more than 28 years of experience and training on topics including firefighting intermediate, National Incident Management System, or NIMS, 701 to 704, and Incident Command Systems, ICS 100 and ICS 700. When we're looking at the personal protective equipment, at the time of the incident, each firefighter entering the structure is wearing their full ensemble of personal protective clothing and equipment, consisting of turnout coats and pants, structural firefighting protective Nomex hoods, helmet, glove, boots, and a self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA. The SCBA had an integrated personal alert safety system, or we also refer to that as a PASS device. The NIOSH investigators examined and photographed the personal protective clothing and SCBA worn by the firefighter Wilson. Since they were not considered to have contributed to the fatality, the fire department did not send the personal protective clothing and SCBA to NIOSH for further evaluation.
So the battalion chief and the command technician that went with the battalion chief responsibilities. Based on the fire department's standard operating procedures, SOPs, there are specific roles for battalion chiefs and their drivers, or command technicians they're called, based on the order of arrival and assignment at the incident. The first due battalion chief should always assume the role of incident commander, which requires him or her to set up and run the incident. Upon arrival, the department's SOPs also require the first incident commander to conduct a walk-around size-up of the incident and then manage the fire from the back of his or her fire command vehicle, which is the designated stationary command post. While managing the fire, the IC is also responsible for monitoring and managing the radio traffic for fireground activities. The first due command technician is responsible for setting up the incident command board located at the stationary command post. The purpose of the incident command board is to direct, track all personnel dispatched to the fire. Setting up the board should be conducted under the direction of the incident commander. The second due battalion chief has the responsibility of incident safety officer. This position does not become involved in firefighting efforts and operates as a staff member who reports only to the IC. The second due command technician assists with command post functions as needed. The third due battalion chief maintains communication with central dispatch for additional resources and any pertinent information that may be relayed from central dispatch. The position can also assist with the command board and personnel placement as needed. The third due command technician will assist the command post as needed. The fourth due battalion chief reports to the command post with his command technician as the responsibility of establishing and managing the staging area. The weather at this incident, it occurred in the early morning hours of May 20th, 2013. The approximate temperature was 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, I forgot to convert it. That's about 20 Celsius, with wind speeds ranging between 18 to 20 miles per hour.
The structure itself, the apartment complex where the incident occurred, was built in 1980 and consisted of 3 separate structures, each comprised of 3 buildings interconnected by a series of indoor stairwells and outdoor covered walkways for a total of 9 separate apartment buildings. The structure where the incident occurred was in the middle of the complex, specifically in Building 5, which was connected to Buildings 4 and 6. Each apartment building consisted of 3 floors with 8 separate apartments on each floor. All 3 buildings were connected by a fully enclosed glass atrium at the south side of Building 5. The atrium was the primary entrance to Building 5, which was also accessible by the walkways between Buildings 4 and 6. These apartments varied in size from 715 to 1,066 square feet, which is roughly between 66 to 99 square meters. Each apartment structure was constructed on a concrete slab, and it was Type 5 construction, which consisted of parallel cord trusses covered with 1/2-inch plywood for support of the floors and the roof. The exterior and interior walls were constructed of 2x4s, and the interior hallways were constructed with 2x6s supported by galvanized joist hangers nailed to header boards that were attached with nails to the end of the parallel cord trusses. The doors that led to each of the apartments were recessed approximately about 30 inches or 76 centimeters. Now this created a vestibule in the apartment's entrance. At the time of the fire, the building and the other buildings in the complex were being reinforced in the hallways to address the structural instability caused by nailing the header boards to the end of the parallel cord trusses. The NIOSH investigators were able to inspect many of these areas and observed areas where a contractor had used lag screws or bolts to strengthen these connection points. Most building hallways inspected by the NIOSH investigators also had an additional 2x6 installed by the contractor under the original one to add additional support to the floor joists. The work had not yet been completed in the fire building. Although required, building permits were not obtained for the work completed to structurally improve the instability of the hallways. The buildings had a fire alarm system, and there were sprinklers located in the trash chute just above each trash chute opening located at the end of each hallway, there where the actual fire originated. This was enclosed at the building at the end of the hallway with a dumpster located at ground level that was accessed for removal at an outside door. The top of the trash chute terminated in the attic space of the apartment building and did not provide any type of barrier to prevent the fire from spreading throughout the attic. The sprinkler heads were not working at the time of the fire because the sprinkler system did not have its own water supply, but was connected to the building's main water supply. At the time of the fire, a building maintenance worker was attempting to fix a water leak in a residence on the third floor and had shut off the main water supply to the building. Official pre-planning reports of these apartment buildings had not been completed. There have been numerous fires at this complex to which the fire department had responded to in the past, so the firefighters in the department were aware of the building's lightweight construction features. The most recent building permit to repair the fire damage in the building where the incident occurred was filed in 2011.
The investigation. So on May 20th, 2013, approximately 0251 hours, so early in the morning, Central Dispatch received an automatic alarm at the apartment complex. Engine 29 and Truck 57 both responded to the auto alarm. Truck 57 reported fire through the roof and called for a full alarm. Truck 57 directed Engine 29 up to the north entrance where the fire was located. The Engine 29 officer pulled up the hydrant map and noticed that all the hydrants were located on the south side of the complex. He told his driver to enter the complex on the north side and then circled around to the south side to size up the building. Engine 29 crews stretched a 3-inch or 77 mil supply line to their engine and prepared to stretch a line into the glass atrium common area where the 3 apartment buildings joined. Battalion Chief 4 was the first due chief officer to arrive on scene at 3:05 hours. He entered through the south entrance and drove past the Engine 29 crew to the fire building. Battalion Chief 4 Command Tech dropped Battalion Chief 4 off at the Alpha Bravo corner to the apartment complex where the fire was extending through the roof. Battalion 4 told his command technician to park the vehicle and set up the command board while he donned his gear. The driveway to the north side of Bravo had a carport adjacent to it across from the fire building. The height of the carport was too low to allow the command board to be set up with BC4's vehicle. Command Technician 4 pulled the vehicle to the Charlie side of the apartment complex and set up the command board in the back of the vehicle in a parking lot facing the fire building. Battalion Chief 4 remained on the Alpha side to direct the fire attack. Command Technician 4 was a backup driver and only drove once or twice a month. For most of the initial response, he was alone in the parking lot without supervision or communication as to where units were located or knowledge of their operating instructions. As other battalion chiefs arrived on scene, they began to fill the roles of division and group commanders to oversee fire operations according to ICS roles, right? So there's a note here from NIOSH. Setting up the command post on the Charlie side caused confusion since the command post and the incident commander typically set up in the stationary command post on the Alpha side. And it sounds like he wasn't able to keep a command board up because he didn't have radio comms for some reason, didn't know what the instructions were that were being given face to face. At approximately 19 minutes after time of call, a deputy chief arrived, reported to the command post, and assumed incident command. He immediately noticed that there was no chief officer present in the command post and that the command board was not completed. He ordered a third alarm. There was also a discrepancy as to the division designations. He conducted a 360-degree size-up and spoke face-to-face with the battalion chiefs in each division and told them their new division's responsibilities. There's a note here again from NIOSH. Note side Charlie and side Alpha were switched to ensure side Alpha corresponded with the location of the command post as shown in one of the photos, which we'll post on our social medias. Battalion Chief 2 and Command Technician arrived on scene 21 minutes after time of call and reported to the command post. The incident commander assigned Command Technician 2 to assist with setting up the command board, and Battalion Chief 2 was assigned the role of Incident Safety Officer, ISO. Battalion Chief 2 was to walk the perimeter and walk the interior of the fire building to get a visual layout of the building. He walked the entire length of the first floor of the building with no visible fire conditions. Then he walked halfway down the second floor hallway, encountered light smoke and heat. He was not on air, so he went back to the command post to report his findings. He was then given the order to oversee search and evacuation operations on the Bravo side atrium area for both the first and second floors. Battalion Chief 4, who had been that original one, had set Truck 57 up on the Alpha Bravo corner of the fire building for aerial operations. Engine 57 and Engine 28 reported to Battalion Chief 4. Engine 57 was ordered to prepare for exterior fire attack. Battalion Chief 3 arrived on scene 22 minutes after time of call at 3:13 hours. Battalion Chief there's a note here, Battalion Chief 3 reported in to Battalion Chief 4 and thought that he was reporting to the IC, but Battalion Chief 4 had been relieved by the Deputy Chief. Battalion Chief 4 sent Battalion Chief 3 to the third floor with a crew from Engine 28 to evacuate civilians and fight the spread of fire down the third floor hallway. Battalion Chief 4 then walked down to the atrium and ordered the crew from Engine 29 to evacuate the civilians from the second floor. Engine 20 was to evacuate the civilians from the first floor and then assist with the second floor evacuation. During this time, Command Technician 4 was setting up the command board. A woman appeared on the third floor balcony shouting to be rescued. Command Technician 4 called for Truck 37 to come to the Charlie side of the building to set up their aerial ladder for civilian rescue. After the rescue, he called for Engine 28 to supply Truck 37 with water. At this time, he received a request for water from Engine 57. He called for Engine 22 to provide water supply for Engine 57. Multiple fireground tasks the initial Command Technician 4 had to complete distracted him from completing his primary function, which was setting up the command board. There's a note here from NIOSH that says the initial decision not to operate from a stationary command post created confusion for the remaining responding units. Arriving units and personnel were following department procedures that dictate Alpha side is where command post should be set up. Battalion Chief 4 was directing fireground operations using division designations from the side he was located on, which contributed to confusion. Side Alpha will be referred to as the side where the command post was located throughout the remainder of the report.
So Battalion Chief 7 arrived at the staging area at approximately 37 minutes after the time of call, and Command Tech 7 began to establish and manage the resources and staging. Battalion Chief 7 reported to the command post to check in, but did not find an incident commander and realized that the command board had not been set up yet. He immediately called for his Command Tech 7 to report to the command post to assist Command Tech 4 and Command Tech 2 with setting up the command board to provide accountability for all units on the fireground. Battalion Chief 7 then went to the atrium area on side Bravo to assist with the suppression and evacuation activities. The Engine 20 crew was on the first floor with Battalion Chief 2 just inside the first floor hallway and started their primary search. They found and removed several occupants from the first floor and handed them over to a rescue company. One occupant was removed via a sitting walker by rolling them out into the atrium and across the street. Battalion Chief 2 was in the atrium when the Engine 20 crew told him that the search was complete and that there was fire in the last door on the left, which was the laundry chute. Battalion Chief 2 gave them the order to proceed to the second floor to begin a primary search and evacuate occupants. The Engine 28 crew was on the third floor conducting a primary search. To provide water on the third floor, Truck 57 crew pulled a hose line from a standpipe located in Building 6. The Engine 28 and Truck 57 crews pulled the ceiling in the common area just before the door that leads into the apartment hallway. At this time, they encountered moderate smoke but no fire. They entered the hallway and conducted their primary search with a thermal imager, or TI, and they completed their primary search of the apartments that were tenable. The last 2 apartments on the north end of the hallway were engulfed in fire. They pulled ceiling in the apartment hallway and encountered fire and thick pressurized smoke. Battalion Chief 3 ordered them back out of the apartment hallway and into the atrium. Battalion Chief 3 stated that he reported over the radio that the 3rd floor primary search was completed. The Engine 29 crew was on the 2nd floor and opened the door to the hallway apartment. Flames were visible at the ceiling towards the far end of the hallway. The Engine 29 officer pulled his crew out and retrieved an 1 3/4-inch handline, and then they entered to conduct their primary search with the officer utilizing the thermal imager. Just like the Engine 28 crew on the 3rd floor, Engine 29 completed a primary search of the apartments on the 2nd floor that were tenable. The last 2 apartments on the north end of the hallway were also fully involved with fire. They completed their search and were extinguishing the fire in the ceiling as they exited the apartment hallway. The Engine 29 officer noted that the floor trusses in the ceiling above them, which were supporting the 3rd floor, were on fire. The Engine 20 crew made it to the 2nd floor to assist with the primary search. The Engine 20 crew reported to the Engine 29 officer that they completed their primary search of the 1st floor. The Engine 29 crew members were low on air and exited to change their bottles. The Engine 29 officer exited and reported to Battalion Chief 4 that the primary search had been completed on the 1st floor and that a primary search had been completed on the 2nd and 3rd floors that were tenable. Battalion Chief 4 stated that he reported over the radio that a primary search of the 1st floor had been conducted and that the 2nd and 3rd floor apartments that were not fully engulfed were actually completed. The incident command moved to the command post, which was still in the process of identifying all the operating units. Their company locations and functions, and you'll see in the Facebook photo 5 and 6, you'll see the pictures of the company locations and functions. So he called for an emergency evacuation, a personal accountability report or PAR, and for defensive operations. He ordered that master streams to be deployed, and Truck 37, Truck 57, and Truck 19 began flowing water from their ladder pipes. 4th alarm companies were reporting to staging at the command post for assignments. Truck 53 arrived on scene at approximately 04:11 hours, so 4 a.m. in the morning, and reported to the staging area. However, the staging area was not staffed. The Truck 53 officer radioed the IC, who told him to report to the command post with his crew. Truck 53 arrived at the command post at approximately 29 minutes after the time of call, and the IC ordered them to take his crew and evacuate Building 4. There's a note here from NIOSH that there were reports of being relayed over the radio of crew members still removing occupants from buildings other than the fire building. There weren't any crews operating in the fire building at this time due to the operation still being defensive.
Chief Officer 701 arrived and reported to the command post. So this is like another deputy or assistant chief or something. And he told the incident commander told 701 that crews were still pulling residents out of the 1st floor of the fire building and to gear up and prepare to make an entry to finish primary search of the 1st floor of the fire building. Truck 53 had just finished evacuating Building 4 and reported to command post. According to the information provided to NIOSH investigators, it was reported that the incident commander told 701 to take Truck 53 crew to search the 1st floor of the fire building. There's a note here from the NIOSH. Note that during the interview process, NIOSH investigators received conflicting reports as to the actual assignment that was given. Chief Officer 701 and the Truck 53 crew proceeded from the Alpha side to the atrium on the Bravo side. Battalion Chief 7 was there acting as the Division B commander. 701 asked the Division B commander how long Truck 37 had been flowing their ladder pipe from the Alpha side and requested to have it shut down so they could complete their order finishing primary search of the 1st floor of the building. Inside the atrium, the Truck 53 officer told the crew to put on their masks and break up into 2-person search teams to conduct a quick search. Chief 701 accompanied the Truck 53 officer and his driver and started the search of the 1st apartment on the right. Firefighter Wilson and his partner, who were on Truck 53, took the next apartment down the hallway to the right. Truck 53 officer and his crew finished the search of the apartment on the right and moved quickly to the next apartment on the left. Firefighter Wilson and his partner encountered a locked door on both of the 2nd apartments on the right side of the hallway. They moved down to the 3rd set of apartments, where the doors to the apartments were inset from the hallway by these small vestibules we mentioned earlier. Firefighter Wilson's partner was in the area knocking on the third door to the left and Firefighter Wilson was going to knock on the third door on the right. In an instant, the second floor walkway, possibly the third floor also, walkway collapsed into the first floor hallway, trapping and killing Firefighter Wilson. Firefighter Wilson's partner was also trapped in the inside of the doorway. He called the Mayday, activated his standalone pass device, and requested command to shut down the ladder pipe for fear of being drowned. Note, at this time of the collapse, there were 7 master streams in operation. And I was confused as to where everybody went there. I don't know how we describe it better, but wow, there's all these master streams and they're inside, and 701. And there's articles later that talk about Chief 701, I believe. We're on to the recommendations.
Recommendation number 1, fire department should ensure that the incident commander establishes a stationary command post, maintains the role of director of fireground operations, and does not become involved with firefighting efforts. So the discussion on this is according to NFPA 1561 5.3.1, the incident commander shall have overall authority for management of the incident. In addition to conducting initial size-up, the incident commander must establish and maintain a command post outside of the structure to assign companies, delegate functions, and continually evaluate the risk versus gain of continued firefighting efforts. The involvement of the initial IC in firefighting also hampers the collection and communication of essential information as command is transferred to late arriving officers. In this incident, a stationary command post was never established, and separate and uncoordinated activities were taking place in multiple locations. This contributed to a failure to size up of the overall incident scene, to properly evaluate risk versus gain, and to maintain accountability on the fireground.
Yeah, it seemed like a mess to me. I don't know, just from reading it, I'm still confused. Recommendation number 2, fire department should ensure that incident commander conducts the initial size up and risk assessment of the incident scene before interior firefighting operations begin. The discussion here is among the most important duties of the first officer on the scene is conducting initial size up of the incident. This information lays the foundation for the entire operation. It determines the number of firefighters, the amount of apparatus and equipment needed to control the blaze. It assists in determining the most effective point of fire extinguishment attack and the most effective method of venting heat and smoke, and whether attack should be offensive or defensive. As retired Fire Chief Alan Brunacini recommends that the arriving incident commander drive partially or completely around the structure whenever possible to get a complete view of the structure. While this may delay the IC's arrival by a few seconds, the drive-by may prove significant details not visible from the stationary command post. Fires in commercial structures are typically more dangerous than residential building fires. As retired Assistant Chief Vince Dunn states that defensive operations should be used more often at special occupancies and commercial buildings. Chief Dunn cites the statistics that 4 firefighters die for every 100,000 residential fires, when compared to 9 firefighter deaths for every 100,000 commercial structure fires. So over 50%, 100% increase, over 100% increase. In this incident, the arriving officers concentrated on the alpha and delta sides of the structure. A complete 360 size-up was never conducted by the initial IC, as he became involved in issuing tactical assignments to incoming companies that what was initially side alpha and did not make it to the command post on side Charlie. As noted, the side designations were later switched around so that the command post was located on side alpha after the switch.
Recommendation number 3, fire department should ensure critical benchmarks are communicated to the incident commander. The discussion with this recommendation is that the size up of interior conditions is just as important as exterior size up. The incident commander monitors exterior conditions while the interior conditions are monitored and communicated to the incident commander as soon as possible from the company officers. Knowing the location and the size of fire inside the building lays the foundation for all subsequent operations. Interior conditions could change the incident commander's initial strategy. Retired Fire Chief Alan Brunacini states that critical fireground factors, including interior and exterior conditions, are among many of the items that the incident commander must consider when evaluating tactical situations. In this incident, several critical fireground issues should have been communicated by radio to command, such as completion of primary search of each floor of the fire building, interior fire conditions throughout the complex, initiation of master stream operations. These are all critical fireground tasks that may have impacted the outcome of the incident.
Recommendation number 4 is fire departments should develop, implement, and enforce clear procedures for operational modes. Changes in modes must be coordinated between the incident command and the command staff and the firefighters. The discussion about this is fire departments need to have clear, well-established procedures for different operational modes. A risk versus gain analysis, known as risk-benefit evaluation, is one of the most useful tools the incident commander has for reducing overall risk to firefighters during an incident, thus enhancing their overall safety and health. When Truck 53 went to conduct primary search again, the strategy that the companies on the fireground were operating in was defensive. There were 7 master streams in operation at the time. It was never communicated to the rest of the fireground that Truck 53 was going interior to conduct a primary search and to shut down their master streams. And I remember the controversy when this happened. There was a lot of controversy over why a chief came in on scene, decided to go interior again, when essentially they were in a defensive fire condition. They shouldn't have been interior, and there was a lot of discussion about that in the fire service.
Paul, you touched on this earlier. We don't do defensive and offensive operations at the same time. He would have driven up. He would have seen all these master streams. 7 master streams were pumping water on this. It's pretty hard to miss that. So, that's a tough one. Recommendation number 5. Fire department should ensure the pre-designated incident safety officer assumes that role upon arriving on the fireground. So the discussion around that is that a pre-designated incident safety officer can monitor the incident action plan, conditions, activities, and the operations to determine whether they fall within the criteria as defined by the department's risk management plan. Chief Stefan Reynes, Chief Safety with the New York City Fire Department, notes, if a fire officer is not usually assigned as an incident safety officer or ISO, it is very difficult to remove oneself from the thought process of being a tactical officer and concentrate on safety concerns only. Now, in this incident, there was early confusion as to where the incident command post was located, and the incident commander was not located at the incident command post to give assignments to arriving personnel. The department's SOPs, or standard operating procedures, dictate that the second due chief assumes the role of safety officer. Battalion Chief 4 was not at the command post and did not have complete knowledge of what personnel were on their scene, their order of response, locations, or duties. When the deputy chief arrived at the incident command post, the IC, which was initially Battalion Chief 4, was operating on the opposite side of the fire building. Battalion Chief 2 arrived at the command post and was assigned by the deputy chief to be the incident safety officer. Battalion Chief 3 reported to Battalion Chief 4, thinking that Battalion Chief 4 was still the IC, and was assigned by Battalion Chief 4 to assist in firefighting efforts.
Yeah, confusion. For a large, professional, trained department, complacency, I would say, but that's just my personal opinion. Recommendation number 6, fire departments should ensure that firefighters are trained in situational awareness, personal safety, and accountability. The discussion around this recommendation was all firefighters operating in an incident should maintain situational awareness. Dr. Rich Gassaway, look it up, watch him on YouTube, read his book, Situational Awareness, and conduct a continuous risk assessment throughout the incident, reporting unsafe or changing conditions to the incident commander. For incidents in which the transfer of command occurs multiple times, the incident of long duration, or the incident scene covers a large geographical area, the collapse zone need to be continually enforced. This is what happened in Shirley Towers in the UK. Incident command transferred 3 or 4 times, sometimes by telephone, and the new incident commanders didn't know the firefighters were in the multi-level, very complex apartment, and 2 firefighters were killed in Manchester in the UK. We covered that in another episode. I don't have it off the top of my head, but Chief Christopher Naum, SPFE Command Institute, notes, most situations involving a structure fire, the probability of anticipation for structural collapse or compromise are inevitably minimized, overlooked, or at times disregarded until the catastrophic conditions present themselves with little or no time to react accordingly. The loss of situational awareness, coupled with distracted attention to subtle or obvious pre-collapse building indicators and gaps in building construction system knowledge, combine to elevate operational risks to personnel on the fire ground at structure fires. And the firefighters noted that things didn't look right inside the building, and they had fire in the trusses that were holding up the other floors, and then you put a bunch of water on top of them. In this incident, the fire had consumed the upper section of the apartment complex, and there were multiple master streams in operation. Many veteran battalion chiefs knew of the lightweight construction utilized in these apartment complexes from fighting prior fires at the location. The incident was into its fourth alarm and the second hour of the incident, and the incident command board was not completed and probably did not show that primary search had already taken place. The civilians had been evacuated during the primary search completely by the first arriving companies, which was witnessed by and reported to chief officers. Incident commanders, division group supervisors, safety officers, and company officers and firefighters need to understand the hazards associated with building construction, the structural effects of master streams, survivability profiles, and how they can take personal action, such as being aware of unnoticed hazards and communicating those concerns and appropriate levels to the command structure, right? Emergency traffic, this hallway doesn't look safe, would be an example.
Recommendation number 7, fire departments should train on and understand the use and operation of elevated master streams and its effect on structural degradation. The discussion is that master streams are an effective tool for fire suppression operations. Master streams can deliver a large volume of water over a distance while also reducing the direct exposure of the firefighters to the fire. Master stream operations can also accelerate the structural
degradation.
Thank you, Paul. And can increase the risk of a building collapse. During this incident, there were 7 master streams in operation for an extended period of time. A decision was made to change tactics back to offensive to conduct a primary search of the fire building after the arrival of the fourth alarm companies, when the Truck 53 crew went interior to conduct their search. The master streams were not shut down.
And what was the safety officer doing? Recommendation, not that he should have, the chief should have known better. The recommendation number 8, fire departments should ensure that predetermined assignments are assumed and staffed. The discussion here was many fire departments have predetermined support assignments to help ensure that critical positions and functions within the incident command structure are staffed. Predetermined assignments, Doug likes predetermined assignments, are usually based on the order of dispatch. Incident safety officer, staging, rapid intervention crews are just some of the predetermined assignments that are routinely determined based on the order of dispatch. They never even mentioned anything about rapid intervention crews here. In this incident, the fire department had procedures in place that called for the 2nd New Battalion Chief to assume the role of safety officer and also defined for the duties for incoming command technicians, such as the responsibility of establishing and maintaining staging. In this incident, incoming resources were reporting to both the command post on the Charlie side, later designated as the Alpha side, and to Battalion Chief 4 on the Alpha side. Normal procedures should ensure that predetermined assignments are assumed and staffed.
Alpha side is where it started for the command post. They moved to Charlie side, so they changed the name of it to Alpha side. I'm getting confused here, Paul.
Yeah.
It's not hard. Recommendation number 9, fire departments should train all firefighting personnel on the risks and hazards related to structural collapse. The discussion on this recommendation is that proper training is an important aspect of fire-safe ground operation. Both officers and firefighters need to be aware of different types of building construction and their associated hazards. Establishing priorities is another primary factor in fire ground safe operation that should be included in firefighter training programs. The protection of life should be the highest goal of the fire service. According to retired Fire Chief Vince Dunn, when there is no clear danger to civilians, the first priority of fire grounding. According to retired Chief Vince Dunn, when there is no clear danger to civilians, the first priority of firefighting should be the protection of the firefighters' lives, and when no other person's life is in danger, the life of the firefighter has a higher priority than fire containment or property consideration. In this incident, crews had already completed occupant searches on each floor of the fire building, and there was no indications that civilians were still inside the first floor. It is also noted that defensive operations had already been in place for some time prior to the collapse.
And this is, go back to, just for fun, for blue card, is the second in incident commander is going to note where the command post is and what side it's on. And from then on, it'll be on that side. Recommendation 10, municipalities, building owners, and authorities having jurisdiction should ensure that sprinkler systems are installed in multifamily housing units. Municipalities and authorities having jurisdiction should consider requiring building owners to regularly inspect sprinkler systems to ensure they are functioning properly. The discussion here was fire development beyond the incipient stage is one of the greatest hazards so firefighters are exposed to. This exposure and risk to firefighters can be dramatically reduced when fires are controlled or extinguished by automatic sprinkler systems. In this incident, the 3-story apartment building did have a sprinkler system, including sprinkler heads in the trash chutes near where the fire originated. However, the sprinkler system did not have its own water supply. It was connected to the building's main water supply. At the time of the fire, a building maintenance worker was attempting to fix a water leak in the residence on the third floor and had shut off the main water supply to the building. A properly operating sprinkler system with its own separate water supply could possibly have contained the fire to the point of origin in the trash chute and prevented extension of the fire to the building. Containing or extinguishing the fire would have significantly reduced the risk to all emergency responders and maybe saved the building. Now there's an excerpt here from Fire Rescue 1 in the Dallas Morning News. Tactical errors made by commanders and miscommunications led to the death of a Dallas firefighter last year in a 6-alarm blaze, according to a pair of local investigations that were released Thursday. I tried to get the investigations, but I couldn't get a copy to review. The State Fire Marshal and Dallas Fire Rescue Line of Duty death investigations detail the spread of the fire, confusion among commanders, and decisions leading up to the death of firefighter Stanley Wilson on May 20th of 2013. The reports offer a few conflicting accounts about what happened that night, but several firefighters allege that Deputy Chief Bobby Ross ordered Wilson and 3 other firefighters back into a collapsing condominium building hours after the fire had started. The state report faulted the commander's failure to properly assess the fire, the structure, and available personnel. It also raised questions about their supervision and decisions of how to battle the blaze and whether to search the buildings. Commanders failed to assess the fire, structural, and available personnel. Stanley Wilson died in May 2013 after he was ordered back into a collapsing building. The reports were released to the public by the attorney for Jenny Wilson, the firefighter's widow. Firefighter Dallas Fire Rescue Line of Duty death report matches public comments previously made by Wilson's longtime friend Jim Crump, a retired Dallas firefighter. Crump said Thursday, reading the reports made me want to cry. He said he believes Ross was careless. Regardless of how well-meaning he might have thought he was, he broke every rule that is established for a fire commander, Crump said, and it cost Stanley Wilson his life. Ross declined to comment Thursday through Dallas Fire Rescue spokesman Lieutenant Joel Lavender. Joel Lavender said he also declined to comment on the contents of the report because it had yet to be officially released. He said Fire Chief Louis Bright gave the report to Jenny Wilson on Wednesday so she could read it and ask questions before the department released it publicly. Bright is expected to give a full statement on the report Friday.
Wilson's widow had been pushing for the report's release for months after remaining mostly silent publicly for a year after her husband's death. She said Thursday that she was disappointed by the report's emphasis on miscommunication and confusion at the scene. They were almost acting like Dallas had never been in a 6-alarm fire before, she said. According to the Line of Duty death report, the deadly blaze started shortly before 3 a.m. in a trash chute of a condominium complex at the 12,300 block of Abrams Road in far northeast Dallas. There were fire sprinklers in the chute, but the building's water supply had been shut off temporarily because the property manager had discovered that a resident had built an irrigation system to grow marijuana. Wilson and the other firefighters on Truck 53 arrived at the complex after the fire went to 3 alarms, and firefighters at the scene had already switched to defensive tactics. By then, firefighters had searched the building where Wilson eventually died. Several of the condos in that building collapsed after 4 a.m., and more were fully engulfed in flames. Water was pounding the building from aerial ladder pipes, effectively collapsing the building. The report said that Ross regularly left his command post, which contributed to the confusion. Ross was in charge of directing firefighting operations at the scene. At about 4:40 a.m., Section Chief George Tomasevic asked Ross what he needed. Tomasevic said Ross replied, "They are still pulling people from the first floor. There is still a portion of the first floor that hasn't been searched. Take Truck 53 and make a quick search of the first floor." Tomasevic said Ross added, "Make it real quick." But Ross told investigators, he said to Tomasevic, "Get your crew together, get pipe poles. I want you to break out windows on the first floor, the one side of the burning building." Ross told investigators he thought the sound of breaking glass would rouse anyone still inside.
That's ridiculous.
I'm not sure what that would be. Some firefighters told investigators that Ross was confused when he heard about the search later and heard him say something about pike poles, but several other firefighters at the scene backed Tomasevic's account. The report states that investigators asked the 3 surviving members of Wilson's truck whether there was any chance Ross said words about pike poles, which would indicate that the firefighters should remain outside the structure. All of them flatly denied Ross's words. Crump said Ross' explanation was absurd. If there's any thought that somebody is inside of the structure and a person decides to run around the outside of the building and break glass, that person will be given time off, he said. That's something you don't do. A captain said he asked Tomasevic whether they were to search the building with the ladder pipe still blasting water in the building, a maneuver that would have placed anyone inside in danger. He said Tomasevic indicated he really wasn't sure exactly what they were doing.
Although more than an hour had passed since the last civilian was rescued from the building, the crew of 4 from Truck 53, including Wilson, went in and began searching. 5 minutes later, the building started to collapse. Tomasevic was briefly trapped by collapsing debris. Other firefighters pulled him to safety. A mayday call went out signaling distress. The Dallas report said that several of the fire crews interviewed regarding the mayday expressed surprise that anyone would have been inside the building for any reason then. Wilson didn't make it out and he was crushed. His body was found hours later. Crump said Ross, who had been with the department since 1984 and remains a deputy chief, should have been fired soon after Wilson's death. Lavender was the spokesperson, said that he could not comment on personal matters, but he added that neither Ross nor anyone else connected to the fire is the target of an internal affairs investigation. Both reports on the fire recommended several changes, including more training and re-evaluation on some tactical procedures, but Crump called some of the recommendations a slap in the face because the department already follows them. Barry Hansen, Jenny Wilson's attorney, said the reports show that Wilson and other firefighters should never have been ordered back into the building. We're fortunate we didn't lose 4 firefighters that day, Hansen said, and if things don't change, we're going to lose more. Wilson says that she thinks the department is holding back more information. I just want better answers, she said. The Dallas Morning News. Well, what do you think of that?
Oh, boy, I almost needed a pen and a piece of paper to try to track who was where and what was going on.
But yeah, an hour later, hey, let's go back in and search.
No.
I remember the reports and some of the videos and stuff I've seen. 7
master streams. Okay, Paul, you're the fire track expert here. How much water is a master stream putting on a building?
At least 1,000 gallons a minute.
Okay, 1,000 gallon minutes. And it's 10 pounds a gallon.
Yep.
And there were 7 master streams going.
Yep.
That's a lot. I'm not going to do the math, but that's a lot of weight in there on a compromised structure.
Crazy. And everybody was evacuated already and searched. The ones that were able to be reached. And no one else, I didn't hear anything about any people dying in the building. So
no.
Except for the firefighter.
So command was supposed to set up the command board, track people. There was 2 or 3 command techs that were trying to do it.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be at the Alpha side, got moved to the Charlie side. So instead of moving it to the Alpha side, they just called Charlie side the Alpha side. I was confused there.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to another emergency traffic podcast. We appreciate your interest and we hope that you find these interesting and informative. Give us a like, a star, a thumbs up, or subscribe on the app that you use to listen to us. These mean a lot to help the algorithms for people to learn about our podcast, which is slowly growing. It keeps growing into our 5th season now, almost to episode 100. You can follow us on our Facebook page. We love your comments. We give you feedback. Thank you very much. You can email us at emergencytrafficpodcast@gmail.com. Let's be safe out there.